All right, welcome everybody. This is Natural Law and Regenerative Economies. This is the first conversation, the law of divine oneness. So I want to remind anybody who's watching this, if you are a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project, you can log these hours as hours served. So these are hours that you are serving to be able to regain credit or gain credit within our time banking system. So as we go through the next 12 months, the next 12 weeks, I'll be talking a little bit more about how time banking makes universal basic income possible. But I wanted to introduce myself first and introduce our panelists. My name is Michael Schumann. I am a minister in training, and this is part of my ministry outreach for Unitarian efforts, for interspiritual, interfaith efforts, where my mission is to introduce natural law and the forgiveness of all debts. So we'll be talking about how to have those conversations, how to be more collaborative and less competitive, and that's really what makes universal basic income possible. So I'll tell you a little bit more about myself and my motivations for starting these conversations. But first, I wanted to introduce you to our panelists tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Randy, and Randy, I'm going to ask you to do a 1 to 2 minute introduction of yourself.
Well, thank you, Mike. Gosh, I'm a talker, so I don't know if I can do this 2 minutes. So let's try to do it to 30 seconds, and we hit
I'll do this when you're ready, when I'm ready to wrap up.
But I've known Mike for a couple of years, and it seemed that where we hit it off the most was in the spirit of collaboration, understanding that we all can practice independence and interdependence if we are emotionally healthy. And the challenges involved with, collaborations, relationships, communities, again, they're basically just indications that I am not emotionally healthy. Now, I'm going to get part of my challenges of being less than healthy. I will judge other people, try to make assumptions. If I can just speak patient, kind, just general principles, being a nice guy, well, I should say, being a person that's intentional about trying to spread kindness, compassion, and then things will go okay. If we're in a competitive mode and things are challenging, and that's my red flag when I step back and understand what's off with Randy. So Mike's been awesome in helping me, in a very kind way that he does things and stuff, realize the adjustments I need to make about being a little bit better in my professional and personal relationships. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. And I given an opportunity to be part of this panel is a way of me kind of paying it forward and helping. So yeah, today's a great day. I'm looking forward to today. I'm sure everyone here can teach me in ways that Mike is as well, or expand on what Mike is talking about. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Randy. And Randy's community Easier Ways, I kind of think of them as like an affiliate sponsor and an affiliate partner. So I'm going to give Randy a little bit of an opportunity to share his vision for the Easier Ways community at the end of today's conversation. So Nini, you're up. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and what would you like us to know about you as a panelist today?
Okay, so not really sure exactly how to start with this. Just I've always been very spiritual, but also kind of ironically also very mathematical and scientific. And then I was also raised, and I still practice religion, so kind of very anomalous. I don't think it's an anomaly that these things can coexist, but there's a lot of hoopla that, you can't be scientific and religious and spiritual and math. Like, you can't do all these things at the same time. So if anybody feels that maybe they're doing something that's unconventional or strange, like, I'm very much a proponent of there's only the correct way to serve God as source, whatever that is to you. And a lot of times religion is confused as dogmatism, where it's basically one right way, my way, or the highway, and that's really not what it's about. That genuine religion is just a way to connect up to God as source. And the only way to do that is following your integrity, and there's no wrong way. And an analogy I like to give is, if someone is of a certain faith or religion or whatever, it's the same as like if you go to work and you're a plumber, part of your job description is going to be sticking your hands in toilets. That's just how it goes. If you don't like that, don't be a plumber. So I'm not going to sit there and say, just toss religion out the window. But no, seriously, like there's no wrong way. A plumber is not better or worse than a garbage person. It's not better or worse than, let's say, nobility. They're all very much of service. And the only way to really genuinely be a manifestation of your love to God is to love other people. So it's really about sharing that love. And the other thing that I love to do is I'm a healer and healer psychic, and it's another weird thing about me. So just to let you know, if you have things about yourself that maybe seem strange or unconventional, that's okay, because that's the creative genius within. That's just wanting to be different than the norm.
Great, thank you, Nini. And really, that's what tonight is all about with the law of divine oneness, really challenging that worldview about if somebody's different, how do we think about them? I mean, do we think they're strange? Do we think they're like us? Do we think of ourselves as above them or below them? That's what today's conversation is really going to challenge, because we have history, and now Ray has joined us as well, and Randy have all contributed to our living library project. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well too, about how to have a conversation, for the purposes of exploring what somebody is aware of, what they know, and really getting away from that hierarchy, to be able to ask intelligent questions and to reflect back what resonates and to invest time in each other. That's really what we're going to be talking a little bit about tonight, is investing time in each other, so that we can into more conscious agreements with each other. A lot of the times when we're dealing with businesses or with governments, a lot of the agreements we have with those big entities are unconscious, or we don't have consent. So that's what the law of divine oneness, treating each other as sovereign beings, regardless of your spiritual background or your spiritual beliefs. How do we work in concert with each other? And I want to welcome Ray. Welcome, Ray. I am just having the panelists introduce themselves. So if you just want to say a quick 1-2 minute piece about yourself, what you would like to, what you would like people to know about you tonight, the floor is yours for a minute or two, to put you on the spot. Jump right in the fire here.
Hi everyone. I'm Ray. I use they, she pronouns, and I am joining you from an off-grid yurt. Hopefully my internet connection will hold. And I'm very happy to be part of this. I didn't think I was going to be able to. I have a new job that's going to be starting, but they told me that the trainers aren't available till tomorrow. So I had an extra day, and I was able to join in. The first thing I thought of was, oh, I can jump on. So happy to be here. And this to me is like a positive energy for me. It's like something I get to be a part of that feels really good in a time when it feels like there's so much sadness and grief in the world for so many different reasons. And so this circle and these types of conversations are like life-giving for me. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Ray, and welcome. So I'm going to try to pull up my my PowerPoint here, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to give an overview on how tonight is going to progress. Hopefully you can all still hear me and see me. And I'm just waiting for my screen to come back up here. There we go. All right, did any of you lose me while I was pulling that up? Can you all hear me? Randy, Nini, Ray, can you hear me? Good, very good. All right, so let me go into slideshow here, and we're going to talk a little bit about how tonight is going to go. So the first 15-20 minutes, I'm going to start to introduce the natural laws. And during that conversation, we're going to break for a panelist conversation, probably in about a half an hour or so, or 20 minutes. And then at the end, for the last half hour or so, we're going to open up to a group conversation. And we're going to first talk about the law of divine. So divine oneness is about really seeing all people, all beings as being equal. So what does that mean? How do we, how do we actually kind of log off of and understand what it means to treat somebody as you would want to be treated? So that's what tonight is really about. So if you want to take notes, I'm going to go through all 12 natural laws tonight as I understand them. But I wanted to share this slide with you first. And this is the primary teaching of every religion. So I'll read a few of these here, the Christianity, the Judaism, and the Islam. But when you're watching this or watching the replay of this, you can always pause on this. But really, in Christianity, they say in everything, do to others as you would have them do to you. This is the law, and this is the law and the prophets. In Islam, they say, not one of you truly believes until you wish for others what you wish for yourself. And that is from the Islam religion. In Hinduism, this is the sum of duty. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. And finally, in Judaism, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. This is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. So my motivation in sharing all of this is really, how would I want to be treated if there was information emerging that completely changed the entire dynamic of our socioeconomic system? What if there were a way to redistribute all of the financial resources in the world so that nobody has to starve or nobody has to live in poverty unless they choose to? So the way I would want to be treated, and I've found this a lot in my life and in the business world and in my interactions, there are people who sometimes want to think of themselves as above me, and there are some people who think they're beneath me, and they don't want to have a conversation because they don't feel worthy. So really, what this is all about is really just bringing everybody to the table so that we can explore, not convincing, not competing, but start to explore how collaboration leads to the inevitable outcome of equality, financial, socioeconomic equality. And that's really just a matter of treating each other as equals and learning from each other. Screen here. I want to ask my panelists, and you can unmute yourself if you're not already unmuted. Okay, so we'll stop the share for a moment. I want to ask the panelists, what comes up for you when considering the law of divine oneness, or do unto others as they would have do unto you? So Randy, Nini, or Ray, what are your thoughts and feelings that come up around law of divine oneness?
I guess I'll go first. Why not?
Go for it.
Okay, cool. So, what comes up around me is, for me, is that, how can we all participate in something together as a unified whole? And I know when I was young, that was basically the idea of conforming and kind of forcing everyone to pigeonhole into one thing, which of course always booted me out because I always had the, a different way of seeing things. Even when I did, let's say I followed the conventional way, I always saw the person who didn't, and I felt bad. And I said, well, we're kind of taught that there's only one source, but if there's only one, that implies maybe there's more, so that makes the source finite. What if it's just that the source is one, and that one is all-inclusiveness? And what comes up for that is also, like, when we think of infinity, most people think of this, huge number, this huge, unbounded, unlimited number, but there is a difference between a limit and infinite. A limit is unbounded in that it has an infinite regress. It keeps going ad infinitum. You approach it and you never reach it. It's always out of reach. You can never get there. But infinity is different. Infinity includes everything. It includes the infinite regress. It includes the limits. It includes the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. It doesn't segregate. It doesn't separate. And when they say unconditional love, that's what they mean. It's not about loving the things that look fuzzy-wuzzy to us, but it's even loving the negativity, which a lot of people think, well, that just means, you're enabling bad behavior. And what about violence? And what about war? Do you love that too? And it's like, the short answer is yes, but the more complicated answer is, well, of course I don't. But unconditional love gives space for everything to play itself out without ever interfering with freedom of choice and giving us the opportunity to learn and decide, well, when I act this way, it begets war. And sometimes it takes people a really, really long time to figure that out. But if someone just came and spoiled it for us, that would take away the divine oneness, because they're giving us the answer and now it becomes dogmatic. They're telling us what to do. So it's really an unconditionality, which allows all types to blend in. And, I'm not saying, again, I don't advocate for violence or for war or for hurt or suffering. I'm not saying I advocate for that at all. But the goal is that we should learn the art of integration, where things like equity, equal opportunity, and integrity are what are going to lead this, as opposed to might versus right, and one right way, my way, or the highway. And when I think of divine oneness, I feel that's what a truly unconditionally loving isness, you want to call it God or source, would do, is really give everybody the opportunity to be who he or she is to the fullness, so that the full enrichedness of the experience is lived out, because the only way to get that experience is for the divine to have a physical experience of itself through us. And this is more than a psychological self-extended object topic for another time. But anyways, that's hopefully not too complicated what comes up.
No, that was beautiful, Nini. So I'm going to ask we're going to pause for a moment, and I would like to invite Randy or Ray to reflect back what they heard or what they appreciated about what you had offered here. So we're going to be role modeling an appreciation conversation, or a living library conversation. And so Randy or Ray, whoever would like to jump in, please feel free to reflect back what you heard, what you appreciated, or asking a question, asking a clarifying question if you wish.
So I'm hearing this sort of like all-inclusive oneness from you, Nini, and this question that it comes up for me is, in growing up in Judaism, I experienced a similar kind of upbringing in a conservative religion. Kind of like, how do you kind of relate now? Can you sort of up about,
Yeah.
I always think of like Shema Israel, like he is one. It's like God is one, right? And to me, the idea that like monotheism, right, kind of thinks of God and puts it in a box, and to me it's like it's actually saying the same thing. So I'm just curious if you kind of came to that conclusion of like oneness doesn't mean like a singularity. And it kind of sounds like that's what you're saying, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and definitely being raised, Orthodox Jewish and continuing to practice Orthodox Judaism, and knowing very well that verse Shema Yisrael, and exactly, because we're calling out, you want to say the Israelites. I'll include everybody who wants to find God, whatever that is to you. You're saying, because it's one thing to hear, but to listen. You think about active listening. It's not just, okay, I hear you. It's taking it in. It's reflecting, and it's demonstrating that you've understood what's being said, and you're saying, okay, God is one. Like, not that there's one God, but God is oneness. Everybody, there's none of this power imbalance stuff. It's really, and I feel like the teachings, when people really know what they're saying, and we get out of our own sense of, I have to, there's only one right way to do this. It really is all inclusive. That it just depends on what people do. And it's like, again, it goes back to integrity. If someone wants to practice, let's say, Christianity, there are certain laws of integrity. When I say law, I don't mean, the scarcity kind, but I mean, there's certain codes of ethics that are to be practiced. And if someone chooses to be Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or anything else, or whatever, someone chooses whatever it is, it's all good. It really is all good, as long as the person has integrity. So just wherever you're coming from, the oneness of God is applicable to anyone in whatever way he, she, they, it, them, however you choose to identify, wishes to commune. It's really open, and that's what I love.
Thank you, Nini. What's alive for me too is when you had said not the law as in a scarcity mindset. Those are like mandates. Those are things that are opposed from above in a hierarchy. We're talking more about agreements, talking more about these are universal principles that we're talking about. So all of these all of these quote unquote natural laws are not mandates. They're universal principles on how do we start to relate to each other? How do we come up with more conscious agreements with each other? Randy, I'm going to invite you in on this, on what you're hearing and what is alive for you at the moment listening to this.
Yeah, thank you. What intrigues me is how Nini was talking about the finite or limitations, and then the infinite, the all-inclusiveness with it. So I may have, I don't know, misunderstood it was here, but it was the finite was something that sounded like, again, limitations, and it was never within grasp, but it was, I don't know, it was, I don't know, it was almost like there was some kind of tangible border to it, again, a limitation that the human mind could comprehend. But then when you were talking about the finite and the inclusiveness of it, that certainly, again, changed the whole paradigm of comprehending that it is incomprehensible. Again, was I making any sense of this? Because my question is I don't believe I really fully grasped what you were presenting there. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the finite and the infinite?
Yeah, sure. And that's more of a mathematical concept. So, for people who are more math oriented, this might make a little more sense. But what you're describing is when I was saying the unreachable, that's called in calculus a limit. When it's a limit, it's it's like the exponential function, or trying to fill the area of a curve. Like you're reaching, or to any singularity or an asymptote. Like you're reaching a point, and it's like the closer that you get, you're still always a step away. Like Zeno's principles in math for an open system, it's like the closer you get infinitesimally closer and closer. But there's always what's called an infinite regress. I'm sorry. You'll never actually get there, and that's just for finite entities. A finite entity, like something that's made up of space and time and matter, will not ever be able to get that to that infinite point. So a lot of people, when they define infinity, they define it as like unlimited. They define it like a singularity, something that you approach and you never reach because it's unbounded. But what I was explaining is that infinity is not a number. People think of it as a big number, like something that is unlimited that you'll never reach. Infinity is not a number. It's a concept. And I know in math it's often, I'm going to say, misused as a number, and that's, again, topic for another time. But just think of infinity as all-inclusiveness. So, like unconditional love, it includes the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. Whereas, those are things that you're always approaching, but you're never reaching. And that's the idea of like God being in the sky, being really far away. It's like you always strive to be this esoteric perfectionist, but you'll never ever get there because that's unattainable. So it's true of infinity, if we think of it that way, is unattainable. But people who it's called the Shekhinah, it's the indwelling isness of God that resides in everything, in the flowers and the rocks and the trees. That's right here within us. So it's included in everything. Good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between has that spark of God. So I was just using it as an example. Does that make more sense?
Yes. Well, if I may repeat it back to you. So again, something that is infinite is also all inclusive. So it is reachable, it is obtainable. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, it's obtainable, but again, not in a quantitative way. It's obtainable. It's like I had said to someone who kept trying to convince me, to listen to their opinion, and I disagreed. And I said, listen, stop trying to buy my love. Love is unconditional. You have it already. I love you. But I still disagree with you. I'm not gonna stand up for what you believe in because I disagree. It's that kind of thing. The love is there. It's there all the time. She was trying to, win my approval, and I didn't agree with her opinion, and that was that. So she was going for something that she felt like was out of her reach. When really,
in that example, again, it's in my mental concept, or this individual's mental concept, was thinking that again, it was something. Yeah, it's obtainable if certain conditions are met. If an equation was put into play using, I don't know calculus, but again, if the equation is correct, the sum of the parts come together. Okay. But in the infinite, then we're talking about like a synergy. the sum of is greater than the whole of the parts. If I said that right. I'm sure you guys
Very good. Thank you, Randy. I'm going to take a break from this part of the conversation and move on. But what I'd like to do, and okay, good, my screen is still. What we're doing is we're setting up beautifully for our next conversation, which will be next week, which is going to be about the law of gender, but it's about kind of getting comfortable with what is uncomfortable. There's one law called the law of polarity, where there's linear thinking, where things have a process, and A leads to B and B leads to C. And then there's emergent thinking or circular thinking, which is inclusive, and it is complex, and accepting the complexity and being in the middle of that discomfort. So I'm gonna push on here with the rest of the natural law. So this is tonight an introduction of where we're going in the next 12 weeks. So as I said, next week I'll put in a little plug for this now. On Thursday, the 17th at 7 o'clock in the evening, we're going to be doing the law of gender. And Ray and I at the moment are scheduled to panel for that one. And what that means is there is male and female components to everybody. And there are aspects of both in everyone, and it's a dance. Some people experience that dance as a conflict, and there it is. So we will be talking about respect for both feminine and masculine energies. So if you're taking notes, you can write down. That's what the law of gender will be about. So we have divine oneness, gender, and hopefully my screen will pick up here. We'll do correspondence in week 3. Mimi and I are scheduled to so far to panel that conversation. And what that means is it looks at as above, so below, as within, so without. And my screen is really slow on this. I do apologize. But we'll be looking at, there we go. We'll be looking at what is observable and how does that inform us of what's going on the inside. What are the conflicts on the outside, like what we see in politics or what we see in our relationships, and how is that mirroring the energies within? And then we have 4, which would be the law of rhythm. And what that is, the law of rhythm, which is everything has a cycle. There's a line from the Bible, a passage from the Bible, and also in the song, to every season, there is a time under heaven. So sometimes when we're not experiencing what we would like to experience, understanding the cycles, the rhythm, there's rhythms in astrology, there's rhythms in numerology, there's rhythm in the season, just understanding where you are in the cycle can help you to know what's coming next. So this is going to be what we cover here in October: divine oneness, gender, correspondence, and rhythm. So that is going to be an emphasis on what we call living library conversations, which we just demonstrated to you between Nini and Randy and Ray. And really what that is about, one of the things that I'd like to challenge all of you tonight, when we go into the big conversation with all of us, when I start including everybody here tonight, is to think about what resonated with you tonight and to reflect back what you appreciate and what it is that resonates with you. And if something is confusing, to just ask a clarifying question. Therefore, we get away from opinion ping pong and competition and conflict and really start to invest time in each other. So I'm going to quickly go through this. Here is how do you start a living library conversation? And this is something that I'm hoping to start with, in our spiritual communities as well too. I'm slated to start a live workshop here in mid-November at Circle of Miracles about having living library conversations. And this is based on the human library concept out of Denmark, where you have a conversation with someone that you wouldn't normally have a conversation with, someone that, someone who wouldn't normally, probably cross your path. And the point of it is to break stigma, to not judge a book by its cover. So some of the things that I will be I will be encouraging you all tonight that if you want to continue with this work and you want to continue to go deeper, the first step is just inviting somebody into a conversation. So I will challenge everybody tonight to invite someone into a conversation with just the intention of listening. So that's really the goal. That's really the intention. It's not to get them to do anything. It's not to get them to buy anything. It's not to get them to, to convince them of doing anything. It's just about you listening and entering into their world. I believe the Chinese character for listening combines the symbol for the ear and the symbol for world. So when you're listening, you're using your ear to enter into their world. When you have that conversation, make a conscious agreement. So this is what this is really all about here, is in honoring each other as equals. Make a conscious agreement between the two of you, to invest another hour with each other or another 2 hours with each other. So that's something that's between you and the other person. What is the conscious agreement about how much time you are going to spend? And then you can designate who is going to be the human book, that is, who is the speaker, which in our demonstration just now, Nini was kind of like the human book, and Randy and Ray sort of demonstrated how to be the reader. And so the reader listens and reflects about what resonates and appreciated about what the book says, and also asking clarifying questions when something is still confusing or does not resonate. So you can spend hours and hours just in these conversations, these appreciation conversations. And as we go through the next 12 weeks, I'm going to be sharing with you how to log that data, how to log that time into the time bank, so that we kind of change the rules of finance, of what you are worth, what you're worth to society, and what you're worth to your partner as well. So I'm going to go back now, and we're going to go through, just continue with the overview of the natural laws. Okay, relativity will be next, and that will be starting in November. Okay, so relativity, which is really about being objective, is really about looking at different subjective points of view. So what I have quoted here is, one can only be objective by taking into account the many vantage points, or the many vantage points, I put advantage, the many vantage points of subjectivity. So everybody has their own story. So how do we learn to listen to each other's story and find the common ground? Week 6 will be the law of vibration. Everything is energy. We're going to be talking a little bit about how the emotions affect the stories that we tell about ourselves and about other people. We're also going to be looking at the relationship between the market, the state, and the commons. And so that we'll start to understand a little bit about how the power flows, and how we can kind of interject and interrupt how that power flows. Then comes cause and effect, or the law of karma. So that is what you reap. You reap what you sow. So so what you're putting out there will come back in some form. That's also the law of compensation. And the law of polarity, which is kind of talking about what Nini had just reflected on a little bit ago, about how everything, what we think of as evil, or what we think of as bad, or what we might judge, still has a place. So everything in creation has an equal and opposite expression. So again, it's about getting underneath the story about that expression, and looking at our judgments, looking at our feelings about that, and maybe even start to have conversations around conflict resolution, where when somebody that we don't agree with, or someone who represents, or we think represents, something that is the complete opposite of what we want, how to start to have those conversations. Okay, so that's November, and that's when we'll get into more of the time banking aspect of it as well. And we already went through all of this. And then in the final month, law of attraction, like attracts like. Now, I'm not talking about the commercialized version of law of attraction. What I'm talking about is not so much about getting what you want, but realizing that you actually get what you are being. So who are you being in order to kind of get underneath the relationship? Compensation. So energy, whatever you put out, will come back to you in some form. And we're going to start to talk about more of how the financial system works. That the more that you are investing in a time bank, the more you understand how there is a lot more money available to everybody as we start to understand the current rules that are in place and how to kind of change those rules by changing our relationship with each other. And then comes a perpetual transmutation of energy. So energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. So we're going to talk a little bit about how power flows from the market and state and into the commons, and how to how to understand what your role is in that power flow, and even how to change the relationship that you have with that power flow. So there's my list again. Our final week, which will be either the week of Christmas Day, or maybe it might be the week afterwards. We'll see how our panelists are doing at that point, is about inspired action, asking you what is the next right thing for you to do. So after we go through these 12 weeks, and these are conversations you can join us for live, or conversation that you can just watch asynchronistically on these videos. And you can earn hours, and as you're learning about what is emerging, you will be able to understand what your role is that is, especially with your role in conversing with others. So I'm going to return to my full screen here after I give you this one. December, that's where we implement universal basic income. So by discussing law of attraction, compensation, transmutation, and inspired action, we're going to start to apply what we've been through, or what we've been learning over the last 3 months, so that it kind of changes the flow of power and changes the financial system. So I think I talked a lot more than I really wanted to. I wanted to break this up with more conversation. But I'm going to go back to my screen, and I'm going to go to gallery view. And I am going to open it up to whoever would like to speak. If you have any questions, or if you want to make an observation about what resonated with you. I threw a lot of information at you, but now this is your opportunity to kind of reflect back what you heard, and also what it is that you would like to ask questions about.
Mike, I have a quick question.
Sure, Tony.
With the whole time bank thing,
Mhm.
I still have a lot to learn about that. But
Mhm.
I'm just wondering what you meant by login hours, and how
I'm sorry, my
what
connection.
happens when you log in hours, and
Mhm.
like what's that working towards,
Yep. Absolutely, yes. I administer a time bank called the Karmic Margin Call Project. So what we can do is you just fill out an application, and then once you have an account there, you can start logging hours that you are providing, and also hours that you are receiving. So what that does is it helps us to start to collect the data of how you are spending your hours, and when you take that data and you combine it with 2 other points of data, which we'll be covering in law of compensation. What that does is that it helps to bring you a financial return based on your services that you are providing. But yeah, what I would do, Tony, is I can send you the application, and give you access to the time bank, and you can start playing around and having exchanges with Janet or with Nefertiti.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. Yeah, I would really like that.
You've
Great.
already earned some hours, Tony, when you came and worked with me at the center.
Okay. But does that count, since I haven't filled out the application yet or anything like that?
Absolutely, it counts because what we'll be covering is that what we will be covering later is everything that you've done, as long as it's an agreement between you and another person, as long as Janet approves it, as long as Janet says it's okay, it all counts.